Marshals, they're all lined up ready to go. 22 cars then for a 45-minute race for the MSV SuperCup. Red lights on, and on pole position Colin Tester gets the race underway but gets wheel spin off the line. A better start for Crowhurst. It's not been a good start from the second row of the grid for Park in the VW Golf. He's going to drop 3 or 4 places here, but they go into the first corner with Graham Crowhurst at the head of the field in the red, grey and white BMW. Too much wheel spin off the line for Colin Tester, so he slots down into second place with Steve Gales in third place, then making his way through Druids, the hairpin for the first time in the race. Down the hill they come then into Graham Hill Bend, not close enough to try and get this place back yet is Colin Tester. The top 3 are well clear, and then coming through next in 4th place. In fact, it's Gales in 4th place, isn't it? So Gales in the Seat, the one that having to defend here quite vigorously from the BMWs he goes through. We got one off though. The 44 car, I'm afraid, has gone off coming out of Graham Hill Bend. Ray Honeybone is parked up against the barriers, so he's had a spin as the leaders come through for the first time out of Clark Curve, and here comes the pole sitter Colin Tester trying to get his lead back here. The 2 BMWs side by side over the line with Crowhurst on the inside line, Tester in the silver car on the outside line. Can't find a way through at Paddock Hill Bend, sits back in behind and then has a think about going for it up Kelwood Hill. He closes again, he looks at the inside again, the door is shut on the way into Druids, and so for now Crowhurst hangs on to the lead of the race, but that battle has allowed the third place car of number 135 from 5th on the grid, Baldwin, to close the gap in the Nissan. So Baldwin closing up as they come through onto the Cooper Straight. Then 35, who started third, Steve Gales, has got away from the pack now in 4th place, and he comes through onto the Cooper Straight, coming through some traffic already, the 2 leaders, and out through McLaren and towards Clearways and Clark Curve they come. Colin Tester, this is where he really ramped up the pressure on the previous lap, and here he comes again through Clark Curve over the grid hatchings, about to go absolutely side by side over the start finish line. His nose in front, going into the yellow flag zone there because he got one off in the Paddock Hill gravel trap, but he was already through, and it's likely going to be another safety car this, because we've got a live recovery in operation already. But it is Graham Crowhurst who had got the lead of the race, lost out to Colin Tester coming out onto the start-finish straight from Clark Curve. Recovery operation in progress at the moment at Paddock Hill Bend. The car that went off at the start of the previous lap, I'm afraid, was the Mini. And that is Richard Clark, who started 6th on the grid. So Richard out of the race, still under waved yellows rather than a safety car at the moment. And now Crowhurst has got to worry about the 3rd place car of Baldwin, who's all over the back of him as they come out through Clark Curve. That visit to the pits is about to rejoin, but having been lapped now, the 44 car of Ray Honeybone, who had his spin coming out of Graham Hill Bend. Into the double waved yellow flag zone they come. Top 3, no changes there as they come through. But getting away is the Colin Tester car, 1.1 seconds clear now in the silver number 91 BMW. 2nd and 3rd nose to tail again coming through Druids, as again Baldwin tries to find a gap, create a gap on the way down to Graham Hill Bend, but Crowhurst is wise to it and holds the line for now, getting on the power heavy and getting the Nissan slightly out of shape coming out of Graham Hill Bend onto the Cooper Straight. There was Baldwin, and he's now going to lose a couple of lengths as a result of that, but again he's quick on the brakes and he gets the gap back down to almost 0 as they come up towards McLaren and out through towards Clark Curve now. And again, this is where he's going to wind it up, Mark. He's the quicker of the 2 at the moment, and the leader's not getting that far away from them, is he?
Yeah, he's quicker of the 2. The problem is he can't find his way through past Graham Crowhurst at the moment, and all of the time that he can't get past Graham Crowhurst, it's just allowing Colin Tester to increase that lead advantage very, very slightly. Quick announcement, Stephen Connor, if you are listening, you have lost something, sir. Have a look through your wallet. It will be obvious what you have lost if you then present yourself down at race administration, which is in the centre of the circuit, at the very bottom of the pit lane exit end, first 4 there. If you can describe what you have lost, we will reunite it with you. So, Stephen Connor, have a look through your wallet. You've lost something. Come to race admin, identify what you've lost, and we will reunite it with you. For the 2nd place, it looks like we have had the shuffle. James Baldwin has finally picked the pocket of Graham Crowhurst. So it's BMW from Nissan from BMW, but Graham Crowhurst is looking to try and fight back here as they come through Clark Curve onto the Brabham Straight. He's trying to get the BMW up the inside, heading in towards the braking area for Paddock Hill Bend, but he can't do that because we've still got the yellow flags there.
Yes, indeed. So, well-run move that, wasn't it? It started at Surtees. The next two are going to be side-by-side as well as they come out through and over the line now. And it is going to be coming through to gain the place. I think Darren goes. He's on the outside line. He got the place just about before they get to the yellow flag zone. So he should be able to hang on to that. And so he's already up to 4th place here. Steve Gales, number 35, was under pressure all the way through that lap. He's the one that loses out. So the two cars up at Druids, 4th and 5th now. Remember, Darren Goes had this braking issue in qualifying. He's had to come from 12th on the grid. He's trying to win the championship if he can. He's the championship leader. He's worked out that if he finishes 3rd, he said to me, even if his closest rival gets bonus points for fastest lap, and wins his class, wins the race, then that will be enough to wrap up the championship. He's on 135 points. He's 36 points clear. But that becomes 16 points, which you take drop scores into account. And the JK Motorsport team it is that is trying to relieve him of this championship title. Hugh Gurney and Colin Tester. Colin is the driver that is leading the race. So he needs to make sure he's in that position because his nearest championship rivals, Colin Tester and Hugh Gurney, are the two that lead the race at the moment outright. But terrific first few laps for Darren Goes and the Mangoes Racing car, number 22, the green and white machine, already up into 4th place.
Yeah, so into 4th place. We've lost another car though now at the bottom of Paddock Hill Bend, I'm afraid to say, and that's the Lotus Elise that Bailey and Michael Edwards share. It's only just dropped its rear wheels into the gravel. The nose of the car is almost on the rumble strip as well, so that is in a position which, if there's a gap in the traffic, the marshals might, because it's a light car, be able to give it a shove, but it does mean that they have to be very brave and get themselves to the very edge of the circuit. So for the moment, the original snatch is now completed. The JCB is just making its way back to the gap in the barriers, but now there's a second car that needs dealing with there. So the waved yellow flags still continue at Paddock Hill Bend. Race leader 1.7 seconds to the good at the beginning of the lap. There's a bit more traffic coming up as well before too much longer. That is going to be the car that started off the back of the grid and had the 10-second penalty because it was disqualified after qualifying. Brad Kaler's car is about to be scooped up and lapped by the race leader, and for Hugh Gurney, he can't afford to lose time here because all of the time James Baldwin at the wheel of the Nissan has been closing the gap on this lap in particular as they went up towards Clearway's corner. He was only a couple of car lengths behind. The gap in a straight line, though, does stretch, and equally as much, James Baldwin didn't get past the back marker before the yellow flag zone.
No, which he's going to be a little bit careful about that as well, overtaking not just for position, but back markers and yellow flags zones not allowed, so rightly backing off at the right place there.
Safety car.
Safety car is now being deployed for this second car, isn't it? That's the Lotus, which is at the foot of Howard Hill. So safety car is going to bunch them up, and you're going to have Colin Tester, number 91, as the race leader. Second place, number 135, James Baldwin. Third place, number 151, which is driving solo, Graham Crowhurst. Darren Goes, number 22, in 4th place, the championship leader, and on course to wrap up the title. He's not been off the podium in any single race so far this year, and he overtook 35 a couple of laps ago to get that place. So Steve Gales, number 35, in 5th place. Right behind him is the number 13 Scott Parkin driven Seat, the number 13 car, in 6th place. 7th is number 10, which is from 13th on the grid, Martin Cully, in the Seat. All the Seats all huddled together there, and then there was a change just before the safety car came out for 8th place, and that's Ryan Parkin, the other Parkin, who's in the VW Golf. 9th place is the Callum Noble car now, the BMW. That was the driver that dropped back, but still leads Class B. And 10th place is Peter Selden, number 97, in the BMW. Guest class cars are ineligible for championship points. They're invisible as far as championship points are concerned. So Darren Goes, even though he's 4th on the road, he's on for second place points here because Baldwin and Crowhurst, 2nd and 3rd, are both guest drivers. They don't score championship points. So Darren Goes, as it stands, on course to seal the championship title, but Colin Tester and Hugh Gurney doing all they can to put the pressure on by leading the race. The pit window, again, is the middle third of the race, 15 to 30 minutes into the race, and it's coming up fairly soon, a minute and a half to go, so it could well be, I'll dash down to the pits in a minute, it could well be that safety car is out while the pit window opens, and it's about to therefore get pretty busy, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it's going to get very busy once we get to that middle 15 minutes of the race. That's when all of the cars then have the ability to come into the pit lane, conduct their mandatory pit stop, same as earlier on in reality. It's 2 minutes from breaking the beam at pit entry to breaking the beam at pit exit. And as we saw earlier on, if you don't get it right, it can cost you, and cost you quite dear in the case of Ben Davis in the Track Day Championship, because he ended up with his pit stop being just 2 seconds too short from pit in to pit out. It wasn't 2 minutes. It was 1 minute and 58 seconds, and the timing loop is there. You can't argue with it, because that's physically the time that comes off the transponder from pit in to pit out. So as a result of that, it was a 2-second stop-go penalty for the 2 seconds he was short. But of course, you've got to decelerate, stick at the pit lane speed limits, then stop, then re-accelerate. So what is a 2 seconds probably costs you nearly 25 seconds, I would have thought, by the end of it. So cars out there and circulating, no overtaking under the safety car, so the order still remains the same. Colin Tester out front, car number 91, and leading the race, leading Class S. Second place is James Baldwin, car number 135 at the wheel of the Nissan. He is one of the guest class drivers, as is the car in third place, car number 151, Graham Crowhurst. Fourth is 22, Darren Goes. He sits second in Class S, and of course is the man that is leading the championship coming into this weekend. The similar Seat Leon SuperCup of number 35, Steve Gales, sits there in 5th position. That puts him 3rd in Class S, and in 6th position, car number 13 is Scott and Ryan Parkins, Volkswagen Golf. They've got a busy day ahead of them. Ryan behind the wheel currently. That also runs in Class G for all the gas class cars. The first of the Class A cars is car number 10, which is Martin Cully, ex-Volkswagen Racing Cup racer that has been racing this Seat in the MSV SuperCup and Track Day Championship over the course of the last few years, him and his father, both having raced in the VW Cup some years ago. That sits there in 7th place. 8th place at the moment is car number 113, which is the second of the 2 Scott and Ryan Parkin cars. 9th place is Callum Noble, number 20. And wrapping up the top 10 is the BMW E36 M3, number 97, the red car with the black bonnet in the hands of long time BMW racer Pete Selden. So it looks as though the final D&G recovery unit is now out of harm's way behind the barriers. The Lotus that brought about this second safety car has now been scooped out of the position at which it came to rest, with its nose on the very edge of the rumble strips and the curbing at the bottom of Paddock Hill Bend. So whilst the lights are still on the safety car for the moment, they should be extinguished as it heads along the Cooper Straight this time through, which means we get the safety car done and dusted about 3 minutes, 2.5 minutes maybe, before the pit window opens. So we'll wait and see as to whether drivers are going to stay out there, and maybe, in the case of some of them, keep the fingers crossed there could be another safety car during the pit window, which I think in these conditions is probably what I would do if I was out there and didn't have a second driver to worry about. So we're going to get the race back underway. Colin Tester, Brands Hatch expert, instructor here for a good number of years, gets the race back underway. Chasing him around the circuit though is the Nissan 370Z of James Baldwin, and as they accelerate their way to get the race fully underway, over the start finish line now go for Graham Crowhurst. So he can't overtake the back mark, which is Brad Kaler's car, until the start finish line. So he now rockets the BMW past the Seat and puts it a lap down. So the top 3 now through and ahead of the slower traffic, which means they can all start to press on again side by side, the 2 Seats through Paddock Hill Bend. That's Darren Goes and Steve Gales were absolutely leaning on each other as they went up towards the right-hander to start the lap again. And as they head through Druids, already sprinting his way along the Cooper Straight, goes Colin Tester, trying to build a bit of an advantage between himself and the Nissan. We're still 2 minutes away from the pit window opening at this stage, but it has been a very good restart for Colin Tester, who has already managed to gap the Nissan. And first to second looks fairly similar actually to the gap second to third at this stage, as the lead 3 head over the start finish line now. Order still the same. BMW E46 leads the race. Colin Tester, the Nissan 370Z in the hands of James Baldwin is second. The next of the E46 is Graham Crowhurst in the almost camo liveried car, isn't it? Sits there in 3rd place. We are pretty much side by side, are we, for 4th and 5th place again. Darren Goes and Steve Gales still together. They've got the Nick Barton Volkswagen Golf not far behind them as well, but Nick Barton is a lap adrift of them at this stage. In fact, he leaves the door open and allows the number 13 Seat Leon, which is Scott Parkin, for this first part of the race to squeeze his way through. Now, however, Darren Goes needs to deal with another Seat, which is going to be that of Brad Kaler, who stays well and truly out of harm's way actually, and allows the 2 newer looking Seats, that of Darren Goes and Steve Gales, to go through at pretty much unabated speed Over the start-finish line goes Colin Tester. That's now 14 laps completed. That car has the fastest lap of the race as well. That was a 51.474, the fastest lap of the race. The lead three still equidistantly spread. As for fourth place, still together, lap after lap after lap. Steve Gales looks to try and get the opportunity to get himself into fourth place at the expense of Darren Goes, but the two similar Seats, understandably very equally maxed, and equally have some good drivers behind the wheel, so the order still remains the same. Darren Goes just doing enough to keep Steve Gales at bay. Steve Gales will be watching his mirrors as well, just to see whether the slightly older shape Leon at number 13, which is a diesel engine car in the hands of Scott Parkin, might be able to close in. The gap between Gales and Parkin last time through was 1.5 seconds. We'll keep an eye towards that one. Pit window is now open as well, so over the start-finish line go the lead three. None of those as yet opting to pit. Again, Darren Goes coming under pressure from Steve Gales, who is looking to try and sit in the slipstream, drinks one way, jinks the other in a straight line. He gets himself alongside, but he's on the outside line, heading in towards Paddock Hill Bend. He'll take a wider sweep in, but Darren Goes seems to sort of park it on the apex a little bit and get cleanly off the corner each time, so there's just no chink in the armour as yet for Darren Goes, who will be certainly doing the maths in his head with regards to what is happening in the championship as well. For the moment, if he stays where he is with the two guest cars ahead of him, he, subject to official confirmation, will be on for the SuperCup Championship for 2019. But he's still got work to do. We've still got 29 minutes of the race still to go. We did have one change in order last time through, and that was now up into 7th place goes the Volkswagen Golf, Carnival 113 of Ryan Parkin. Down to 8th goes number 10, which is Martin Cully, and already Ryan Parkin is starting to gap the yellow Seat of Martin Cully, so those two are sort of pulling away from each other now. Lead three still through, gap first to second has come down a little bit, couple of tenths that time through, not a great deal, but just a little bit. Still the best of the fights is for 4th and 5th place, but it's still Darren Goes from Steve Gales, and despite the fact Steve Gales is always within touching distance, he's not as yet been able to work his magic and try and steal the place away. Out of Druids, down towards Graham Hill Bends. They're now on their 17th lap of the race. In towards the left-hander, they'll thread their way. Still with out front Colin Tester leading the race and leading Class S. In second place, James Baldwin, the Nissan leading Class G, the guest class. Now the gap first to second's come down on this lap without question. It was 2.1, it's down to 1.5 that time through. So a much better lap for James Baldwin, who's starting to turn the screw again now, and maybe over the course of the next few laps ask a few questions of Colin Tester. He's got to close to start with though before he stands any opportunity of taking the lead of the race. He is the best part of probably a dozen car lengths behind, but the gap's going the right way as far as he's concerned. Brakes as late as he can, pitches the Nissan in towards the left-hander at Graham Hill Bend. Remember, James Baldwin, the Sauber eSports racer, has huge amounts of eSports racing, but in terms of car racing has not half the amount of experience, but is really showing his hand beautifully well here, and he really has closed the gap again on this lap. Remember, it was 2.1 down to 1.5. It's going to be less than a second this time as they come over the start-finish line. Through goes Colin Tester, there goes James Baldwin. The gap first to second is 0.8 of a second, and it's a new fastest lap of the race for the Nissan. That is a 51.474 second lap for the Nissan of James Baldwin. We've had another spin at Paddock Hill Bend, and that's the Lotus again. This time, rather than spinning to the outside and the gravel, it's spun to the inside at Paddock Hill Bend this time through, so that is now getting itself pointing in the right direction. And the Bailey and Michael Edwards shared car, didn't get the start driver for that one, rejoins the race. Pit lane buzzer goes off, which tells me we've got our first pit stopper in, and that is the man from the back of the grid who was excluded from qualifying. Brad Kaler heads into the pit lane as the first of our scheduled pit stoppers in this race so far. The pit window has already been open for 4 minutes, so just taken a while to get the cars into the pits for the first of the pit stoppers. Colin Tester, well, on the previous lap, James Baldwin posted that new fastest lap of the race, a 51.474. The next lap, Colin Tester sets exactly the same lap time to the nearest thousandth, a 51.474. So identical lap times, but any additional points would go the way of the car that posted it first, but that's a guest class car in reality, so it can't pick up the point for that. So that does mean that the points will go that way. Right, cars coming into the pit lane. So number 13 is in. Now this is going to be an interesting one, because this is Scott Parkin, who's about to vacate the 13 car, but he needs to jump into the 113 car, which is Ryan Parkin, who is following him down the pit lane. So they have managed to choreograph this beautifully well, Team Darkside. Also into the pit lane is the Lotus, and they're down there with Chris Hartley.
It worked out nicely. It'd be different, wouldn't it, if they were a lap apart or three-quarters of a lap apart. But Scott Parkin arrived first in the 13 Seat, as you said, going well in the race. Was running up in the top 6, so he gets out, strolls a few yards behind him to the VW Golf, which was started by Ryan. So we're going to swap over now. Ryan gets out. You got this minimum pit stop time of 2 minutes. That's 2 minutes from pit in to pit exit. So they're stationary for about a minute and 40 seconds, minute and 30, minute and 40 seconds or so. So they swap. It's all relatively casual, much more casual than you would imagine. We've also got the 33 Lotus Lease, which has had its moments. Bailey Edwards started, so it's going to be Michael that gets in for the second stint. So the two Parkins have swapped over now, so it's going to be Scott in the VW, it's going to be Ryan in the Seat. And no dramas with the cars, just checking the wheel that's secure. They just check the tyre pressures on both cars. It's more worry, I suppose, for the teams to make sure they don't lose any time here, but all good. Andy Thompson comes in as well, and he's been given some help on the timing, because I think he's got his regular crew with him, so that one comes in. Barry Cully's Seat has just come in as well, the 11 car. And right, door closed on the Seat now of number 13, one of the front runners in the race. How will Ryan get on? It's supposed to be tricky as well to a point, mustn't it, to hop from one car to the other. All got slightly different handling characteristics, different power, different type of car to drive, and so you can hop from one to the other now. It might take a lap or so to get into this, but they're both experienced in these cars, and getting ready to go. Doors closed and about to be released back out into the pit lane is the 13 Seat, now driven by Ryan. Oh, the timing's going. I haven't got the timer on it, but here we go. I'll say it should be about to go, because it's getting there. So he ambles down, the VW Golf close behind. Now the Golf is much closer to the Seat than it was before they came in. There was a bit more of a gap than that, so the Seat, which was pushing for a top 6 finish here, might struggle a little bit, as over the line goes the championship hopeful Darren Goes in the 22 car.
Yeah, Darren Goes still under pressure from Steve Gales as well, who just isn't going away, is he, at this stage? So rejoining the circuit are the two Team Darkside cars, the Seat Leon, then the Volkswagen Golf, which comes out right alongside Darren Goes. So wheel to wheel are the pair of them, albeit one has conducted a pit stop. Darren Goes hasn't at this stage. The Leon, Darren Goes, just pokes his nose ahead. We've also had a little snatch going on as well, just up at Clearways Corner, where I think Kevin Granger deposited his 330 Ci BMW into the gravel trap. That's just being brought behind the barriers now, so that's a car that is now going to take no further part in the race. Last few pit stops just taking place. Barry Cully heading back down pit road. Andy Thompson at the wheel of his Seat Leon also heading back down pit road. But for the lead of the race, they're still pressing on. Half a second separating Colin Tester from James Baldwin. Still BMW from Nissan. They thread their way through Surtees Corner up towards McLaren, then on towards Clearways Corner, both being very evenly matched, and that is absolutely cementing its case, with both of them having done identical fastest laps of the race so far. So over the start-finish sign they'll come Colin Tester, then James Baldwin going through now at the wheel of one of the Bob Neville Team RJN built Nissan 370Zs. Wait the arrival of Graham Crowhurst. He has now dropped a long way adrift of the lead pair. He comes over the start-finish line now, Graham Crowhurst. He was right with them, wasn't he, in the early stages, but he's now 15 seconds adrift of the race leader and nearly 14 seconds behind the second-place car. He's not under pressure, though, really, because he's got a large amount of daylight between himself and the number 22 Seat Leon of Darren Goes, who is finally starting to make a bit of headway here. Through goes Darren Goes over the start-finish line. Steve Gales heads into the pit lane. That was why I thought he'd made some progress, because Steve Gales had disappeared. But Steve Gales, now number 35, from 5th position, heads down the pit road to conduct his mandatory pit stop, and he's driving all the way down towards pit lane exit end of the pit lane to carry out his pit stop. So that will drop him down through the order. That will put Pete Selden in the number 97 BMW up into 5th place. And we'll put the number 78 car, which is shared by the Bradleys. They've made good progress, actually. Started 18th on the grid. They're now up inside the top 6. The order will still shuffle around, though. We've still got more than half of the cars to pit. We've now got only, 6.5 minutes or 6 minutes in which to do so. Very top of the pit lane, we've had a Renault Clio come in. So that will be Alex Tate that dives for the pit lane this time through at the wheel of the Finsport prepared car. So Steve Gales and Alex Tate at the moment, the only 2 cars conducting their mandatory pit stops. And now, are we going to see the Nissan come in on this lap? Because Colin Tester keeps pressing on and is pulling away all of the time. Yes, the Nissan is in. So into the pit lane comes the Nissan of James Baldwin. And Miguel Vasquez is now going to take over that car for part 2 of the race. It's not the only car heading down pit lane, though, because we also have the number 78 BMW in, which is Damien Bradley about to give way to Ronan Bradley for the second part of the race. So the Nissan is in from 2nd place. Important stop, this one, for the team. Door opens, driver clambers out. Next driver is about to dive into the pit lane, dive into the car. Door will close once they get the seatbelts on, but there's no need to rush this. It's 2 minutes pit in to pit out, and now all of a sudden, from the pit lane being fairly empty, it's starting to fill up, because we've also got in now the Porsche Boxster. So that is Fernando Gattino coming in to hand over to Gary Martin.
Yeah, so the Nissan in as Steve Gale is about to rejoin. So Steve Gale goes back out, and he's pretty close to the pit lane exit anyway. The Seat released. Ex-British touring car racer Dan Welsh running that car, and has just been checking over the car and checking the tyres before it went back out. So the Nissan in from an excellent 2nd place by James Baldwin. Miguel Fiasco into the car now. James, who's effectively the world gaming champion. Norris cross on the back of the car, but it shows once again how having the experience and the skills to be a world-class gamer in racing and in esports translates well onto the track. Try and grab a word with James, but it's going to be busy in the second half of this now, isn't it? Darren Gose has come in because a lot of them have left it late before the pit window shuts. Only a few minutes to go. So Darren Gose, the championship leader, in. I can see him to my left. He's got a bit of space around him, which is helpful, so there's no worries about getting boxed in when he tries to get the car back out into the pit lane apron. Engine being fired back up now on the Nissan, and Miguel Fiasco is being held but about to be released. They're keeping this exactly on time. They'll know to within a 10th of a second when they need to get him to that line, and he'll be released about 5-6 seconds before we stall it. Those stalls, the Nissan fires it up, but maybe a second, 2 seconds lost there, which could make the difference. So Miguel goes out. Let's see if we can grab a word with James Baldwin after that excellent stint. James, you got time for a quick word? Well, that was pretty good, wasn't it? I mean, you have done yourself very proud there.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want it to stop. Enjoyed reeling that BMW back in and then losing him in the traffic. It was really good fun. First, proper race in a fast car. So, yeah, I'm actually sweatier than I thought I'd be, but yeah, it was really enjoyable.
We've been saying, just for anybody confused, that how a guy with a novice cross in the back of the car is so quick is because this experience that you've got as effectively the world gaming champion in esports.
Yeah, I mean, the simulators now are so close to real life. I mean, I'm not the only example, but there's plenty of examples to show that the skills are the same. So it takes some of that thing, don't get me wrong, but it's so close now that, yeah, I mean, my karting history and that kind of stuff helps as well. So, yeah, I really enjoyed that.
What is the biggest thing to just get used to? I mean, obviously you've got the sensation of speed, but is the handling so close on the simulators that's not really anything that causes you an issue when you actually get into the real car?
Handling's 95% of the way there. It's just because you're moving about, you're sweating, you can barely move because of the seatbelts. You feel a bit restricted, and you're moving at a rate of knots. That's the only difference, really. It does take some getting used to, and it will continue because I'm not perfect yet, but yeah, the sims are brilliant these days.
And what's the plan going forward for next year? We started to think about that and where this is going to take you eventually.
Yeah, so GT4, I think, maybe GT3. I don't know where it's going to go. There's no set path yet, but definitely racing, which is cool. So I've been waiting a long time for it, so I'm going to make the most of it.
Listen, great to meet you. Well done. A great debut, and good luck for next year as well.
Cheers, mate. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, James. James Baldwin, excellent first stint there in the Nissan Miguel. Back onto the track of the car now. That little stall, but I don't think he lost too much time, and already back onto the track is the championship leader, Darren Ghost.
Yeah, great to hear from James Baldwin now. I'd say also one of the biggest differences to simulators is that there's no reset button, is there, if you're driving a real race car? If you make the mistake, you pay the consequence. If it's on a sim, you just simply Alt-Control-Delete or restart the game, don't you? So, as for the race, we'll pick up on that at the moment, because we do have showing in the pit lane. I can't see it from where I'm stood, but it does show that Colin Tester is in the pit lane. He's just gone out, that's why. So that's now in the hands of Hugh Gurney, the BMW. And, yeah, go on, Chris.
Yeah, I was just going to say, he's just rejoined. He was right underneath the commentary box, and why you couldn't see him. It was the last box. So, yeah, Colin out of the car, looking pretty fresh. I'll grab a word in a minute. He's just getting a media interview at the moment, but we'll grab a word with Colin in a few minutes.
You've got a battered Renault Clio heading down pit road. It's been a difficult day, really, for Ray Honeybone, and yeah, that Apple Car Centre Renault Clio, which had an off into the barriers earlier on at the exit of Graham Hill Bend, and has dislodged the tyres, so that will need a bit of work by the circuit staff at the end of the race, is heading down the pit lane area. Pit window is now closed. Matters not, everybody that is still circulating has conducted their mandatory pit stop. And the order at the moment is car number 91, now safely in the hands of Hugh Gurney as it comes over the start-finish line to complete lap number 30, leads the race at this stage. The car that's in second place is going to be Manuel Fascia at the wheel of the Nissan, but he is now not that far up the road from Graham Crowhurst, who has started to reel the Nissan back in again. So there goes the Nissan now in second place over the start-finish line. And there is car number 151, which is Graham Crowhurst at the wheel of his BMW E46 M3, less than 2 seconds behind. In fourth place is still Darren Goes at the wheel of his Leon, and Steve Gales wraps up the top 5. Chris Hartley's in the pit lane.
Yeah, I've come down to have a quick word with Colin Tester. Colin, take you back to the start of the race. Just a tad too much wheel spin caused you a bit of an issue at the start.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking, shall I try to launch it off in second gear, but I didn't want to risk that, so I went off in first, got a fair bit of wheel spin. It's always more grippy up there, so P2 would have been preferable. But yeah, I managed to get back past Graham after, I think, a couple of laps, and yeah, had a good little dice with him, and then pulled a bit of a gap.
Yeah, just to explain, the start here at Brands is tricky, isn't it? Because it's basically cambered, quite heavily cambered, isn't it?
It is, and when it's cold and damp, it's even worse because the moisture runs down. And yeah, when you get P1, obviously you're pleased, but then you kind of know if the guy next to you gets a good start, he's going to get past you, basically.
As you say, you knew they had the pace, and with a long race like that, you haven't got to panic, have you? Sometimes you just settle into it and pick your moments, really, with an endurance race.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, 45 minutes. Obviously, these guys I'm sharing the car with wanted to leave me out a bit longer, so I know the circuit very well. Yeah, so there's no point going silly the first few laps. So I didn't want to let Graham get away too much or hold me up too much, so I wanted to try and make a move on him. Hugh's a little bit off for what I do, so, you know, the idea of getting me in first, trying to build up a bit of a buffer for the other guys, and let's hope Hugh can do the business out of it.
Still a chance in the title. You're doing everything you can to try and win the race, but Darren's had a good start as well. He's come up the order pretty quickly, but you probably expected that.
Yeah, I didn't know that, damn it. No, yeah, Darren's obviously got a bit of a points lead on us. Unfortunately, we couldn't get out to Zandvoort, which messed our championship up a little bit. But, yeah, it'll be what it'll be. You know, if we have a bit of luck with Darren having a mishap, then good for us. But, you know, all we can do is go out there and win.
And enjoy it. Colin, thanks for your time. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. So, Colin Tester there, and yeah, looking very fresh, actually. It looks like he's, you know, just sort of scooted around and done a, you know, mild, you know, like 10-minute lap and put his tears, not a bead of sweat on him.
Well, he's well used to it now, Colin. There's hardly a weekend goes by that he's not racing something. We've got yellow flags up at Clearways, and that's because, unfortunately, one of the Team Darkside cars, the number 13 Seat Leon, that's now in the hands of Ryan Parkin, has backed itself into the gravel trap, I'm afraid, and it's not that far off the edge of the circuit, so the JCB telehandler will be required to get that car out of harm's way. There are just under 12 minutes of the race to go. We've still got, for the lead of the race, Colin Tester leading by 15 seconds. Sorry, Colin Tester, Hugh Gurney, I should say, now has taken over that car, leading by 15 seconds from Miguel Fascia who is there in second position. Miguel is now just 3 seconds ahead of Graham Crowhurst, so the gap has just stretched a little bit between the pair of them as they fight over second and third position. Fourth place goes over the start-finish line now, which is number 22, Darren Goes, still on course to lift the championship crown if we've got the maths correctly, and of course subject to official confirmation. Number 35, Steve Gales, who is just heading through Paddock Hill Bend, is sitting there in fifth position, and he is, I think, the last of the cars that remains on the lead lap at the moment. Yeah, because if I look a couple of cars behind Steve Gales, that's the race leader Hugh Gurney, so it's just the top 5 that are on the lead lap currently. 6th place is 97 Pete Selden, 7th place is 10 Martin Cully, 8th place is 113, which is the sole remaining Team Darkside car now, Scott Parkin. 9th place is Callum Noble, number 20, completing the top 10 is number 78, that will be Ronan Bradley.
Yeah, news from the pits. You're about to get a stop-go penalty for Pete Selden, I'm afraid. He's going well in the race, but the board is going out for him, and the pit lane marshals are ready to receive him when he comes in as well. So, stop-go penalty for number 97, the BMW of Pete Selden.
Right, thanks for that. It was not showing on the LED timing board at the moment that the drivers can see over the start-finish line on the gantry, because that's saying live snatch at Clearways at the moment, which is exactly what is happening to Ryan Parkins' Seat Leon to keep it out of harm's way. Over the start-finish line goes the fight for second and third place through the traffic. Graham Crowhurst has caught back up with the Nissan again and is now pretty much, within half a car length of it. They're trying to get past Pete Selden's car. Pete sees them coming, uses all of that experience. In fact, the Nissan goes to the left of Pete Selden. The BMW E46 goes to the right of Pete Selden, who was indicating to keep things out of harm's way, and the stop-go penalty for Pete Selden is going to be a 3-second stop-go penalty, is what I can now see on the gantry. So it was 3 seconds, that's all too short, pit in to pit out, but he'll have to come down the pit lane at the regulatory speed limit, stop for 3 seconds before he can then accelerate away. So that is going to drop him, I would say, probably down to maybe 8th or possibly even 9th position by the time that he has served that stop-go penalty. Through and over the start-finish line has already gone the race leader Hugh Gurney. Here comes second position, Miguel Facia at the wheel of the Nissan, with Graham Crowhurst still in touching distance. There's still a second between the pair of them, which isn't a great deal at all. The gap has ebbed and flowed when they've met the traffic. I think that Graham Crowhurst has probably been a little more confident through it and has been able to close the gap back up again, but as soon as they get to clear track, it looks as though the Nissan has the legs over the number 151 BMW. So just as they close up through the traffic, Graham Crowhurst loses out again when they get to the clear parts of the circuit. As for class leaders at this stage, well, leading Class S and leading the race overall is Hugh Gurney. The car that leads Class A is now up into 6th position now, Martin Cully, because Pete Selden has come in to serve that 3-second stop-go penalty. So car number 10 is the Class A leader, and the Class B leader is, at the moment, the purple BMW E46, the Thorney Motorsport prepared car, and run number 20 in the hands of Callum Noble. So those are our 3 main championship classes. Of course, we do have the guest class as well, and that is being led by the Nissan that sits there in second position. So the snatch is almost done. We nearly just need to get that Leon out of the way. So another couple of laps probably with the waved yellow flags in that area, and then we can get the race fully back underway, Chris.
Yeah, with 7 3/4 minutes left on the clock. 12.2 second advantage for Hugh Gurney in the 91 car. 54's last lap around. Point tester quicker, as he said, got into the mid 51s, and Miguel Vesca is going to be the next one through in terms of the front runners. The number 135 car in second place. And this battle that we've got going on between him and Crowhurst, with some back markers in between them now, but maybe not for long, because Crowhurst dives down the inside of 2 of them on the way into Paddock Hill Bend to make sure that he doesn't get delayed. And the BMW there, the last of the late breakers, going deep into the corner at Paddock Hill, but he keeps it on the track. He doesn't even run onto the curbs, really, so it's a good effort, that. And he keeps the Nissan within his sights. So the blue, grey and orange Nissan in second place. The next one into Graham Hill Bend, the red, white and grey BMW trying to snatch second place away from it, but the gap staying about a second at the moment, just under a second I would say it was. He lost a bit of time through the traffic, but not much with that brave move then from Crowhurst. Goes, who's in 4th place but second in class, of course, for the championship of the 22 car, and it's got a 1.6 second advantage over Gales. But Steve Gales, the Dan Welsh Motorsport Run driver in the Seat, is catching him all the time and has just had a personal best lap time.
Yeah, he's pushing hard, isn't he, Steve Gales? I'm not quite sure where he lost all of the time. It must have been a pit stop contact down at Graham Hill Bend, and that is Barry Cully that just tags the tail end of Brad Kaler's car. So Brad Kaler forced onto the grass. They were fighting away for position as well. They were fighting away for 12th and 13th positions, but it was just a light tap, wasn't it, on the rear, and Brad Kaler's car now, I think, might have either got dirty tyres or has suffered some damage there, because the tail end of that car did not like it when it got towards Surtees corner, and he just about, with a bit of arm twirling, was able to gather it up.
Yeah, for second in class as well, that was in the race, so pretty important move. Darren Goes going through into Paddock Hill Bend. Steve Gales right with him now under braking, closes up a little bit more through Paddock Hill Bend, but he loses out on the exit by a length or so. So the green and white Seat still holding on to the position for now. 4th and 5th, the next two up at the hairpin at Druids, and they'll come out, and with parking catching up on the track as well, but lap down in the 6th place car. And the 113 Seat. So through onto the Cooper Straight they come. Again, the gap closes at certain points and opens up at others, but at this juncture it looks like the gap coming down, certainly on the way into the left-hander at Surtees, through to the right at McLaren, and winding it up through Clearways. Then the gap comes right down between the pair of them, so a slightly more stressful final part of the race than he would have hoped for here for the Mango's Racing driver. Darren Goes into the grid hatchings now at a Clark curve over the start-finish line, keeping an eye on the mirrors all the time, but also having to look at the back markers and make sure he reads the road and anticipates where he's going to catch the back markers. And again onto Paddock Hill Bend, very good on the brakes there is Steve Gales.
He's very good up at Paddock Hill Bend, but it's a bit like just before the pit window opened this, really. We've still continually got just positioning the car where he wants it to be. Darren Goes all of the time, and it was impossible before the pit window opened for Steve Gales to try and work his way through. Is he going to be able to do it in what is now the final 5 minutes of this race? Nose to tail along the Cooper Straight again they will go. Up towards Surtees and on towards McLaren. Darren Goes again, breaks that a little bit earlier than Steve Gales. The gap between the pair often closes up from being, well, probably no more than a car length on the straight to about half a car length when they get towards the apexes of the corners. There's a bit more traffic up the road that could come into play, maybe not on this next lap, but on the lap after, and that is going to be the number 28 Volkswagen Golf that was started by Nick Barton. Its father Les now has taken over that car, as again, almost side by side over the start-finish line, goes Darren Goes with Steve Gales right behind him, 4th and 5th.
Yeah, not too much traffic. There's one car ahead, but after that it should be a straight fight between them. So I think Steve Gales will see back markers as an opportunity potentially, and Darren Goes will see them as a potential trip hazard, but that one gets well out of the way. Actually, good driving that. So they're both through by the time they get to the braking zone and through Graham Hill Bend. No dramas at all in that respect. So that was well driven to stay out of harm's way by Barton in the Golf. So no change between them, but the gap equally is just about a car length again as they come out through Clearways towards Clark Curve. It opens up, but under braking you can absolutely guarantee it's going to come back down to a car length or so. He gets a bit of toe right at the end of the straight, but he needs to get closer, doesn't he, coming onto the start-finish straight.
And if they look in their mirrors, the race leader is coming up behind them, so the blue flags could wave soon, and they've got then to decide as to where they want to blend off the throttle potentially, because Hugh Gurney is now closing in on these two. They're busy fighting away for 4th and 5th place. Hugh Gurney doesn't really need to lap them, because he's, for the moment, has nearly a 6-second advantage over the Nissan 370 that still sits there in 2nd position, but nose to tail again. Darren Goes and Steve Gales, as they have been for lap after lap, down through Graham Hill Bend along the Cooper Straight. They sprint their way up towards Surtees. The brake lights come on almost at identical times from the pair of them. But Hugh Gurney, the race leader, is now tucked up right behind them with 2 minutes and 15 seconds to go. So the lap that they're about to start, and then 2 more thereafter.
So the silver BMW, number 91, third one over the line, the race leader. But he's got to be careful here, because the 4th place cars and the 5th place cars are going side by side on the way to Paddock Hill Bend. Steve Gales goes for it around the outside. This is going to be a terrific move, and he's done it all the way around the outside at Paddock Hill Bend, ahead of Darren Goes. And Darren there, I think, probably with the championship just a couple of minutes away, thought, you know what, I'm not going to fight this as hard as normal, and he gave him room, and he had to give him room because that was an utterly committed move from Steve Gales. He'll have to close the door on the way to Graham Hill Bend. He gets a bit leery through the apex, a bit wide, but Darren Goes is trying to stay out of the way of the race leader as well. He's about to lap him, trying to avoid any contacts. The top two in the championship together, trying to win their own respective classes. The lappery has been done though by the time they get to 13s, and Hugh Gurney is through. So Gurney number 91 leads, and then it's Miguel Fiasco number 135 in second place still in the Nissan, and third the other guest driver is Graham Crowhurst, who's around about 4 seconds behind now in third place.
Yeah, so over the start-finish line goes our race leader. Still as yet has not been able to get past Steve Gales, however, and is going to sit behind that Seat Leon as they head on to what should be the penultimate lap of the race this time through. Now for Hugh Gurney, he does need to be careful here because he is caught up behind the slower Seat. He gave away 2 seconds of his lead advantage to Miguel Fiasco that time through at the wheel of the number 135 Nissan, so he's got to keep pushing. Needs to make sure that he doesn't lose too much pace behind Steve Gales. Miguel Fiasco in the meantime has now got Darren Goes Seat Leon that he needs to deal with as well, and as they then thread their way through other slower traffic, which includes the Porsche Boxster of Gary Martin, Hugh Gurney can now concentrate fully on the road ahead again once more. He's about to start his final lap of the race this time through. I think he's got enough just in hand, Chris, that if he sits behind Steve Gales, he won't get caught by the Nissan, will he?
Yeah, I think you're right, but it takes one slip at one corner, doesn't it? And it all changes. And Miguel having a look at the inside of Steve Goes on the way into Paddock Hill Bend to try and put the lap on him. He doesn't do that. Darren Goes again. He's going to be a little bit twitchy here, isn't he, with the championship less than a minute away now? But Druids is trying to lap one car. He's cautious of being lapped by another that's just behind him, and all he wants to do is get the car home, wrap up the championship, and stay out of trouble. Meanwhile, though, the race leader making his way down the Cooper Straight for the final time. Hugh Gurney on course for a race victory at the end of the 45-minute race here at Brands Hatch for the MSV SuperCup, through into McLaren, into Clearways, and coming through now to run through Clark for the final time. The 45 minutes long since gone. The checkered flag awaits, and it's going to be victory at the final race of the season with the championship to Hugh Gurney and Colin Tester. They take the checkered flag. The Nissan comes over the line. Great effort that by James Baldwin and Miguel Fiasco. They come home in second place. Crowhurst in third position. Gales is going to claim fourth position on the lead lap, and Hugh Goes Darren Goes, well done to him, because we reckon that he's done enough. He wanted to be in the top 3 in his class, and he's going to finish in third place. So it looks like he should have wrapped up the championship title.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's about 10 points. I think it's 143 to 133 potentially. I think so. It's about 10 points. It's hovering around double figures. So well done to Darren Goes, but equally as much well done to Hugh Gurney and Colin Test, who gave it everything they possibly could do to try and see whether they could overhaul the points deficit to Darren Goes, and considering that they have got 2 non-scoring rounds, what a season they have had, really. That's their third win, Hugh Gurney, whether he's been with Colin Tester or not, and a second place, a non-finish, and a round that they didn't even attend. So it has been a stellar season for them, really, but missing 2 rounds of what is a short 6-round championship where you only count your best 5 was always going to hurt them when they've only got 4 scores that they can count. So number 91, Hugh Gurney and Colin Tester claim the win. Second goes the way of the pairing of number 135, James Baldwin, doing great things in the early stages of the race. Miguel Fiasco doing great things towards the tail end of the race. They finish in second place. Third place is number 151, which is Graham Crowhurst, and fourth place is number 35, which is Steve Gales, who is the car who is home as the second of the cars in Class S in fourth position. He is also the last car that remains on the lead lap as well. Fifth place, number 22, Darren Goes. Sixth place is car number 113, which is the Ryan and Scott Parkin shared Volkswagen Golf, and in seventh position, that's the Class A winner, which is Martin Cully. Eighth place is car number 78 that finishes in 8th position. That's Damien and Ronan Bradley. They came off the 18th position of the grid, 19th row of the grid, so they've taken 10 places relative to their starting position. 9th place is the leading Class B car home, which is Callum Noble for Thorny Motorsport, and completing the top 10, just to give you that, is car number 43, which is Andy Thompson. So that gives you the top 10 in the final MSV Super Cup race of the season.